Hello, everyone. Welcome to the coffee hour number 3 of the academic year 2015-16. So, Milliken, a quick 30-second update from you guys, from your team.
30 seconds, real quick. Okay, in Art Circus, they had an event about a month ago, and there's Studio Pressure Night. They're releasing an LP, and it's going to be for sale. Lyle Salmi has had, and Carriage House Press has had a guest artist come in. We've got Pipe Dreams had a show that generated 20% more in revenue than what they anticipated. We've got a broadside, poetry broadside that's getting printed right now. Eric has prototypes that are getting developed right now in his prototyping class. And, man, is that 30 seconds yet?
Wow, yes, 30 seconds. Thank you. You're good. Great. DePaul.
Hi, folks.
DePaul?
Here at DePaul, we are just getting excited for USASP. We have a bunch of people going this year. We also have a new director of our Coleman Center who we're interested in meeting. So, and we also have a lot of people that are traveling this time of the year. So.
Okay. Thank you. Beloit College.
Hi, Joe. We're here, but we're just getting our system set up. We're all excited about going to the SEA conference come the spring, and we just recently concluded our Entrepreneurship in the Chinese Economy Conference, which brought in 12 speakers.
Oh, wow. I read part of it on your report, so cool. Thanks for the update. Cal State Fresno.
We're here.
Cal State?
We're here.
A quick 30-second, yes, a quick 30-second update.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
okay, so we are nearing the end of our Coleman Fellows Workshop Series. We had 28 workshops. We probably have 6 left. We've had very good attendance. The workshop series asks our fellows to present something that would be related to skills and knowledge for entrepreneurs. We are in the process of building that out for next semester. Yesterday we had the 10th annual Central Valley Venture Forum, which brings venture capitalists in for a day, and many of us students were there as well across campus.
Great, thank you. Wichita State. Wichita State.
Oh, we're here, Joe. Sorry. Two of our fellows took a lead with building a organization called Widget, and they just finished an attractive space off the entry level of our Center for Entrepreneurship, which will be a gathering place for not only Coleman Fellows, but all faculty on Wichita State interested in innovation and entrepreneurship. So it's kind of an exciting time for that organization. Thanks.
All right, great, thank you. ISU.
Hello, everyone. We just finished Startup Showcase. About half of the teams, we had 18 teams competing for $114,000 in prize money. About half of the teams were not in the College of Business, had a great time. We also have some collaboration efforts between our Coleman Fellows. You'll want to finish the time with that?
We have a collaboration between Yoon and my class, which is a family consumer sciences class and an arts technology class, and our students are learning to work together, which is really, really interesting for them. And then also Stu Records, our record label here, is being revamped, and the students are working on signing a new artist. They're recording an album, and they're working on their contract right now, and the students, the two opposing parties are in my class, so they're kind of, I said, let's discuss this class. Yeah, they're like,
great.
Oh, is that it? Sorry.
Glad to hear more about that. Let's go to SLU.
Okay. Let's see. Our angel network, Billiken Angels, was identified as the #3 network in the Great Plains states and one of only 3 university-based angel networks in the top 30 in the country. Last week, Entrepreneur Magazine and the Princeton Review named SLU number 19 in the country for graduate education. And what that is the MBA in the business school, the culinary entrepreneurship program that was started by Coleman Fellows, and the entrepreneurial law concentration that was started by Coleman Fellows. So it was a cool thing. The last thing is that I sent a note to our founding father, Bob Brockhouse, that pigs flew because the university's new president had a new strategic plan, and the top 3 objectives, objective 1, more money for scholarships, objective 2, more money for faculty and staff, objective 3, entrepreneurship across the campus.
All right, great. Webster.
Good morning, everybody. Basic news we have out of here is we're getting ready to launch our BA in entrepreneurship, which builds on top of the existing certificate in entrepreneurship program we have, and we've also recently rolled out 3 graduate certificate in entrepreneurship across the university. And I think the most exciting news is we have a journalism faculty member who's going to do his first presentation on lean startups. So I think it's a cool move, the fact we've made the break.
That's great. Thank you, Barrett. UNCG.
We just had 3 of our Coleman Veteran Fellows present about the experiential classroom to the group and what they learned and how they implemented it. We also had the Piedmont Angel Network with real live investors come to campus just last week and had 2 major pitches that they funded. And last of all, one of our veteran fellows, Donna Duffy, has been working with the National Field Hockey and Rugby and Lacrosse Associations with their students and have put together a big plan for them. And we're having a Coleman-sponsored reception on Monday the 30th. So that's our exciting news from UNCG Greensboro.
Great, thank you. North Central?
Hi, we're here. There's just 2 of us here today. Most of our team is away at various conferences, including our fearless leader, Brian. But the 2 of us that are here are new fellows. We're both working on new courses for the winter where we're going to be incorporating entrepreneurship.
Okay, great. And you have a bad echo there. Okay, we'll keep you muted. Okay, Canisius?
So hi, this is Kim. The couple of our veterans fellows, they developed actually products. So now we are in process of to be commercialized. This afternoon we are having the meeting with the Vice President of the Enrollment and Academic Affairs. We are searching for the new dean in the business school. Then the new dean got to be international and entrepreneur, the dean, so which is good news. Then 2 weeks ago, the CEO we attended at the National CEO Conference. The candidates, we were selected one of the top 4 schools as the overall best chapter award. So that was good news. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. UMass?
Well, happy Global Entrepreneurship Week to everybody. So we just had our first annual Social Entrepreneurship Conference here on campus that was successful, pointing also some sustainability elements. We're also ramping up for our 2nd iteration of the UMass Innovation Challenge here, where we have 12 teams going in a closed session, one of which is a journalism team that BJ has been fostering through her upgraded entrepreneurship journalism course. And we'll be giving away $15K through that closed session and kind of a Shark Tank style element.
Okay, great.
Yep.
30 seconds up. Okay. Elon.
Hi, Joe. Thanks very much. We
Yeah.
just had our own little triple impact challenge, we call it. We had 46 teams, 95 students from 25 different majors. Happy to report that the Coleman Faculty Fellows had about 12 or 14 teams among themselves. And we just got done with registration, and we have a full class of students going to Silicon Valley on a course in January.
Wow, great, thank you. Lawrence Tech. Lawrence Tech. Okay. Colorado Mesa.
Good morning. All right.
Hi, Joe, we're here.
Okay, wait. Let's give Lawrence Tech 30 seconds. Yeah, go ahead, Lawrence Tech.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had on mute. We had a really great year so far, and we had a partnership with Habitat for Humanity, where our architecture students are actually learning innovative ways to build and design houses, and they've really came up really far in creating an actual prototype and started to build one of the houses. We have one of our, and that's with our Coleman fellow, Scott Shaw, and Jim Stevens. And then we also have our fellow Andy Hansel, who's been a mentor in the I-Core program that we have here called Customers to Cash, and he's mentoring a team in a competition to win startup capital. We were able to have a student forum for our design incubator that we're opening in Midtown Detroit. We had a huge number of students show up for that and express interest in a place where they can grow and start their businesses.
Okay, great, thank you. Now let's go back to Colorado Mesa. Georgianne?
Hi, Joe. So over the last couple of months, what we've done is something called an idea challenge. Can you see us or hear us? There we go. The idea challenge.
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So monthly we're doing this cross-campus idea challenge where we gather people from all the disciplines, and it's worked great because we've used our Coleman Fellows. We've had about 50 people show up for an hour. We throw out random scenarios. They come up with an idea. We give them T-shirts, and everybody's happy. And we've had really great attendance with that. The other thing we've had on our Innovation Center, we had a Beer in Business, which is a meeting of students, the community. We're trying to get a tech community going here on campus. We have some alumni that are really working hard on that. So they had about 30 people attend our Innovation Center. Since we can't have beer there, they walked down to The Point, which is our student-run business, and it was a really great collaboration with the community. We had a combo from youth. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. IIT?
Good morning, Joe.
IIT.
Everybody, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Nick. Go ahead, Nick.
Okay, great. So today we have our iPro Day, which is our interdisciplinary projects for all our undergraduates. So you picked the absolute worst day, so I got to take an hour out of my 2-hour, 100-plus student projects. So that's exciting, though. We're also have 2 competitions over the weekend with 16 teams winning things, and then we've got a number of our students that are participating in competitions around the region. So we've got registrations for next spring. Several of the Coleman classes are being taught in the spring, the Lean Launchpad, for example, and we've got almost 20 people in that. So moving along.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's go back to WPI. WPI, quick 30-second update.
Okay, hi, Joe. We've had a very successful speaker series for our first 2 terms. We've brought in 5 speakers. The most current one was the folks that founded Barefoot Winery, and they told a very interesting story, and they went into, we invited all the Coleman Fellows students to attend, and as well as the Coleman Fellows. In our mechanical engineering department, we've brought in 2 speakers, one on pricing and one on industrial design, but both of the speakers are small business owners. They did a great job, and we're very pleased, and we'll bring them back. In the ECE course, we have a senior fellow teaching that. We're running the Robert H. Grant Invention Award program, and we just had a bumper crop of applications from students this year for the annual Kalenian Award. It's a $20,000 prize for innovation and commercialization. Our 2 newest fellows.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
30 seconds. Okay. We'll hear more about it from the reports. I'd like to hear from TCU and Stetson in the same order, 30 seconds each.
Yeah, TCU's here. So we had our Shattuck Fund competition. We had 7 companies, student-run companies from across campus, and they each are asking for anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000. And the Shattuck Fund is a gift from an alumni of $250,000 that funds those. The first two funded companies have raised six figures, in the mid six figures already, and are doing really well. So it's a student-run fund, and they're doing great. We had dinner with an entrepreneur last night, which is an ongoing program. The fellows have been working on a number of things. Nick Bontrager has done an interesting thing with the art sticker vending machines, which he says are just selling like hotcakes all across campus. And why don't you, Alex, what are you up to?
Doing
We'll come back to Alex. It's 30 seconds. I need to get to the other group. So, Stetson, you here? All right, let's move on to Richard. We have a opportunity to bring back Rich Edwards, who was the main, our keynote speaker at the summit. And he has put a lot of work in not only preparing the reflection questions that we sent out to all the campus directors and all the fellows. And thank you again for your time and effort in replying to the reflection questions. And Richard has taken some time to collage those and put them into some sort of themes. And he's here to talk about not only the reflection question answers, but also his follow-up to the integration of entrepreneurship and the innovation of how that can happen. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Richard. Richard?
Thanks, Joe.
Take it away, yes.
I appreciate the time, and it was great to hearing all the updates. I mean, part of my advantage I get having been both at the summit and now being able to hear the updates at this coffee hour is I get to get that 30,000-foot overview, and hopefully one of the things I can help bring together today is some of the observations I'm seeing from that altitude of interesting overlaps between all 19 of these campuses and all of the different disciplines. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see that in my opening keynote in the summer, I really wanted to start with a big picture presentation. And, you know, one of the things that I frequently preach in this area of innovation and education is really that idea of building cultures of innovation. And one of the ways it happens is simply the way we're doing it in this webinar today. It's this cross-campus collaboration that's really important. And I really focused on, you know, those four ideas that I heard come out in all of the updates today. How are we going to sustain this, make this more productive? How does it meet the student needs? And how does it change our campus culture? And that was what I did in August. Now, as we move to the next slide, you'll see that as we move into this more specific idea of, well, this is something we have to teach in our courses. It's not just a big idea. It's actually something we are implementing. It's going to change our syllabi. It's going to change our assignments. It's going to change our teaching style. And all of this, you know, from my vantage point, because my focus is on improving student learning outcomes, is to get more highly educated, more prepared 21st century college students. So as we go to the next slide, you know, I wanted everyone to have a chance to read this wonderful essay by Randy Bass, who's now a provost at Georgetown University, that really, I think, is at the core of something that really changed my way of looking at this 16 years ago when I first read it, which is when we're talking about any innovation in teaching, and in this setting, we're talking about entrepreneurship in education, it's important to talk about it as something that has to be, part of an active investigation, something that we don't know initially exactly how it's going to work, why it's going to work, what are the best practices, and that's different than the way we've traditionally understood problems in teaching. I mean, as we all know, just typically, think back just even 10, 20 years ago, if a colleague came up to you saying, I have a problem in teaching, you're thinking they're a bad teacher. And that what's interesting about communities like this is we have problems, but we have research problems. We have problems of implementation. We have problems of sustaining innovation, but that's different than bad teaching. That's about the level of difficulty that we're all going to face on all of our campuses when we try to do this exciting new work and the challenges we face. So as we go to the next slide, the idea that I wanted to build around is this idea that comes out of the Carnegie Foundation, which I think has put together the best framework around the scholarship of teaching that applies to the type of work we're all doing here with the Coleman Foundation, which is that if we're on the right track with entrepreneurship and education, it has to meet these three criteria. And I think all the updates we are hearing today start to meet these criteria. But I think if we really foreground it and recognize that the more that we do efforts that can meet these three criteria, the more we will revolutionize and create the 21st century entrepreneurship frameworks on our campuses that we all want. So first, this all has to be public, just like we're doing now. The campuses have to share with campuses, departments have to share with fellow departments on campuses. There just has to be public outreach. Second, all of these ideas have to be reviewable and have evaluation. This is something I'm going to pause on for 30 seconds. I don't have time to touch on it here, but if I were to come back in the spring, the third part of my talk would be, how do we then accurately assess and evaluate the impact we're having? That as we move from big picture to implementation into our classroom, the third part of the pyramid for me, the third side of the triangle, is assessment and evaluation. And if we can start to prove, by both qualitative and quantitative measures, the importance of our work, then that is what's going to lead towards greater adoption over the next 5 to 10 years. And then finally, all of this has to be available for exchange and used by other members of your community. And part of what I'm hoping to do today, because I'm not belonging to any of the campus factions that are represented here today, is I hope that I can bring together and show how ideas from one campus might be very relevant to your campus, and that these type of coffee hour shares are very important in the way that, pardon my language, I think we have to steal from each other to make the future we want. If you hear a great idea another college is doing, it is not a bad idea to just take it and make it your own. And I think we have to do this because there's no monopoly on a good idea. We gotta all work to find what works on our campuses. So if we go to the next slide, I asked each of you to do 4 different reflections, and the next part of the talk is going to involve the comments from the Coleman Fellows that I brought together and collated the responses. And then I want to stop after each reflection and see if there's any further thoughts among the people on the webinar today. So reflection number 1 I asked was, as we move from big picture innovation to small picture implementation in our courses, what would you revise, change, or update in your syllabus now that you know new things as a Coleman Fellow? So on the next slide, I highlighted 6 things that came up most commonly in the responses by you, the Coleman Fellows. So this is your self-declared reflections on what you think needs updating and revision. And I'll go through them first, and then I'll open it to the floor for further thoughts. The first one I think is very important. A number of you indicated that in order for a course to be successful, very early in the semester, there needs to be a setup of entrepreneurship principles or theory or some type of framework, but it has to happen early in the semester that you get student buy-in. If you wait too late, it starts to feel like the entrepreneurship piece is an add-on and not an integrated part of the course. Several of you mentioned the need for clear deadlines and expectations. I've been working in this field for the last 17 years, and on this point, my rule of thumb when I work with faculty on the campuses that I work on, the deadline and expectation issues is something that typically sorts out by the 3rd time you teach one of these courses. So for the Coleman veterans out there, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who are about to start teaching your first courses, you'll recognize it's hard the first time to actually know when you're doing innovation what the deadlines and expectations are. You almost have to run it first one time to start to create a sense of what will work for your class and your discipline. A number of you mentioned better integration. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that right now because that shows up in multiple reflections, and I have more to say on that later. But one of the parts that I think is very interesting is when you try to do the type of work the Coleman Foundation is asking, and I've seen it with other foundations and other types of innovations in education efforts is the risk of entrepreneurship being an added factor to the class, almost like an extra lab without credit, rather than a part of a cohesive redesign of a learning principle that fits in within the normal objectives of a standard credit hour in college classroom. And, you know, it's always a risk that you're sometimes feeling the risk to inflate a class to do two things at once, when the best designed classes really don't add entrepreneurship to their syllabi. It actually transforms the syllabi, leaving the workload very similar to the student, but the impact of the engine of entrepreneurship changes the learning outcome. Several of you mentioned the need for more personalization, and I think in entrepreneurship this is very important. Entrepreneurship, in all of the proposals that I read and in the 30-second summaries that I heard today, I noticed the one thing that was missing is we're not talking about the giant room where we're preaching entrepreneurship with a sage on the stage to 1,000 students. We know that that's not how entrepreneurship works. It's a very personal method of thinking, engaging the world, being interactive with one's education and real-world problems. And this means that there's a different type of challenge, I think, for many of us as pedagogists on how to teach a class that might have to serve a range of learners in the classroom, and it might not be one size fits all. A couple of you mentioned that courses that were working well and how you might revise a course in the future is to build an entire course around a hub concept. Have all the students work on a project that goes through an entire entrepreneurial lean startup or lean canvas life cycle, and that's not a bad idea. And that feeds in with the final one, fewer projects. It's not ever going to be about how many entrepreneurial projects you have. It could just be one ambitious, great project, especially if it's a quarter system. I think it almost has to be one project. If it's a semester system, you might be able to have a starter project and then a final project. But the hub concept and the fewer projects together is really just my sense in reading your reflections to encourage the thinking that it's not going to be about trying to do a lot of small things well. Frequently, this type of revolution in education might be about doing one big thing, getting that collaborative entrepreneurial spirit in the classroom generated, and then that could be the basis of the class. So are there any other follow-up thoughts in the audiences on anything you would revise, update, or change now that you've taught or are preparing to teach in the entrepreneurship programs?
And if I can ask you to raise your buttons, and we'll try to keep it to 30 seconds. There's probably a lot of thoughts, perhaps, or comments. And Richard, I'll start out with a quick one on my end. When we talk about the hub concept, you know, that works well in certain disciplines, certain subject matters, and not in every subject matter across the board. And so what happens is when you, as a fellow engaging in this process of the first time, it creates a sort of a fuzziness around it. And what I'm hearing you say is it's okay to have that fuzziness. It's okay to have that uncertainty. It's okay to have that confusion, because as you embark in the process, is that what I'm hearing from you? I just want to affirm what you're saying.
It's a great point, Joe. Yes. If we have one takeaway from today, I will say our slogan for today is embrace the fuzziness. That is a great idea. You can't go into innovation in education with any sort of certainty. This is about embracing the fuzziness and having the courage to persevere when things don't work, and recognize that when you find things that don't work in this style of innovation, it's a good thing, because that's things you can bring back to coffee hours, bring back to summits, bring back to your departmental meetings, and have a real healthy dialogue about why it didn't work and what could and maybe authentically work. So I think that's a great point. I wasn't saying that every course needs to have a hub concept. I was just simply saying that it was interesting to me that, to me, it's a logical challenge step that if you teach an entrepreneurship course one semester and it's not quite working, I frequently feel it doesn't work because you haven't fully made the full leap into a new style of teaching and course design. And I have found in the different types of projects that I've coached over the years that when you're still seeking your authentic style and what works for your discipline, a good one to try is the hub concept. Now, you might not like it. It might not fully work for your discipline. It's just one that is easier operationally to plot out on a syllabus, to break into 10 or 15-week chunks. And it sometimes helps give those ladder rungs to a faculty member, and it still might be fuzzy, but it's at least something to hold on to, as there's so many other moving parts. At least the hub concept, you can keep going back to, what's our goal here? Our goal here is for a student to be an entrepreneur in a project-based environment.
Okay, great. If there are other comments, you can raise your hand or you can just simply speak up. Okay,
Okay, well, let's go to
the next one, reflection number 2.
So reflection number 2, I'm a big fan of trying to get communities of practice to share actual artifacts. We are stronger as a community the more that we actually share our assignments, our syllabi, our projects at the actual tactical level, the level of like literally sharing, emailing, to Joe, your assignments that work, and creating a database so that other people can build and refine their own work based on projects that have worked in different disciplines on different campuses. So if we go to the next slide, the ones that I pulled out that I think are some of these might be really common sense, but don't let their obviousness hide their importance in the entire framework of what we're undertaking. The first one is, I think, the number one phenomenon that we are starting to see in 21st century education, which is the decline of the discrete course and the rise of the continuous project. I know I just heard it in the 30-second update. I can't tell you how thrilled I am. I've taught courses like this since 1998. I've had students work on projects I've assigned their entire undergraduate career. I've had students try to commercialize products that they've started in my class. Projects that get stimulated that way, in my opinion, are genuinely entrepreneurial. That when a student is invested in a project and not invested in the grade, we are winning. And we have a lot of examples of that, and I think we should start creating a kind of repository at the Coleman Foundation of those types of projects, because I think that starts to indicate that this type of innovation is really transformative in the lives of our students. The second one, yes.
I just wanted to interject here. We do have the Coleman Fellows website that functions as this repository, and I would encourage everyone to share your reports. And I know it's one more task for you perhaps, but I think it's a great way to share what Richard is talking about. So thank you for that.
Okay. The second one is, and this one's very obvious, but it's that obviousness that I hope, again, to kind of look at it with fresh eyes for just 30 seconds, is these projects work because they're real-world projects. This is genuinely the projects that I started to hear. You can hear the excitement in your voices when you are feeling your student projects are real. There's a difference. There's a difference between a student just doing getting an A on a multiple choice quiz and a student actually building something that is genuinely a product that might help society. There's just a difference in it, and we feel it as faculty members, we feel it as members of a higher education community, and I think, one of the artifacts, again, that we should be sharing and celebrating as loudly as possible are those. The third part, which is the third point, which I think is related to that, is several of you shared that in your discipline, there tends to be real-world project milestones, so that if you're in a musical discipline, there are steps in the music business that are something a graduate's going to encounter if they go into the music business. My background's a PhD in film, and I frequently taught my digital video courses where they actually had to do a 30-second elevator pitch, because that's what you have to do if you're going to try and get a video made for MTV. And so a lot of projects need to start to simulate those real-world analogs and follow the exact process that these students will encounter on their first internship, on their first job, and as they advance in their careers. And I think, again, the more that we would work on a disciplinary basis to identify entrepreneurial projects and break them down into their real-world analogs and start to share and refine those, we can almost create a kind of handbook of interchangeable parts for different types of disciplines that could be very interesting. A lot of you really, really love the idea of having students doing pitches and client presentations. I think that is fabulous. I think that's entrepreneurial education at its heart, is that if you are creating students that are capable of taking a semester's worth of knowledge and turning it into a powerful and persuasive 30-second pitch, we are doing it right. And that is something that is replacing the 5-page term paper, and that's not something we should have any anxiety about. It's a different skill set, but one that they're going to need. They need both, but you know, they're going to get the other one in other courses. This might be one of the few places on campus they're going to get this skill of being able to take an idea, pitch it, and create the project documentation around it. A lot of you were talking about the importance of having student reflections. I haven't taught a course on learning that has involved learning innovation for, you know, at least a decade and a half that doesn't have a student reflection of some type. I think most of you are doing it, but I guess since I have the chance to talk to you all, it's my one public service announcement. If you're not doing student reflections, you're missing out on the good stuff. The students will tell you what is working. It's not about product, it's all about process. And I find student process in the student reflection prompts. And I hold them near and dear to my heart, and I can really understand and start to rank my students based on their ability to reflect on what they're learning, such as entrepreneurship. And that comes through the reflections as much as through the quality of their final projects. And then finally, many of you are doing what I think is part and parcel of this transformation of the 21st century campus, which is opening your classrooms to external experts. And these experts can be all sorts of different individuals. They can be local business leaders, they can be alumni, they can be other members of the campus community. But we're moving again in the 21st century from the hermetic classroom to the open classroom. And the more we are willing to open our classes to external review and our student projects and having, say, a pitch festival. I know one of you said that you have your festival with the 100 students who are doing their pitches today. That's awesome. Everyone should be doing that, because that's where you're going to really get the understanding of the quality of what your students are doing. So with that said, again, I'll open it to the floor for questions or comments.
Any comments or questions, thoughts?
Yeah, this is Andy Hansel. Well, we did a project that is called Pocket Park, and it was in collaboration with Detroit Blightbusters, Motor City Blightbusters. And basically it was a design project. This is an actual industrial design course. What happened, we actually did quite a bit of field research, and as it turned out, there was so much in terms of zoning restrictions and all of the kinds of things that an entrepreneur would struggle with and deal with, that it started to affect the students' ability to actually do the design work. So I had to sort of jump in and say, look, let's assume it's a good thing that you've done the research on what the different public restrictions and regulations are, but I'm going to have to call an audible here to encourage you to get back to the design piece as well. So that was the big problem. All of a sudden, 30% of their effort was sort of solving that regulation issue.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a great point. Good to see you again, Andy. you know, that's what happens when we open this up to the real world. The real world really
sure.
doesn't, you know, you know, and again, part of my major point here would just mostly be the more we can share these types of thoughts, you know, I think if you were to do it next time, there might be ways to build into the project design a way to avoid that 30%, you know, problem, you know, because I've encountered that too. You run in, when you do something new the first time, there's no ground rules, and you don't know who might offend, what the hidden costs are. You know, one of the things when you start to say, oh, we're just going to, you know, have a capstone day for all of our Coleman Fellow projects. Well, you might have to book that a year in advance because you need the largest room in the Student Center. And you're not just going to get that next week. So, you know, as we go down these roads, it opens new things, but I do feel that the challenge is worth it, that we got to keep pushing these boundaries.
Oh yeah, and I would encourage people to expose the students to these kinds of things because they're endemic to the whole notion of entrepreneurialism. That is what you spend 30% of your time on.
Yep. Okay, so let's wrap up and have closing costs. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate your observations there. So on the third reflection, I was really.
Oh wait, hold on. There's one more comment from UNCG.
Okay, go ahead.
Keith, yeah, this is Keith Dabbage at UNCG. I was very intrigued by the Lawrence Tack comment about this issue of land use regulation, and I was curious in terms of a comment to the speaker. One of the issues I think for probably many of the fellows is obviously we're all in core disciplines that are removed from the business school. I think that's one of the criteria for becoming a Coleman Fellow. So obviously we're serving a core constituency. And I think the issue is how do you judge the student demand in terms of, you know, integrating your course material with an area of entrepreneurship that's, you know, untested in terms of your own core discipline. Now, I was curious in terms of the speaker's experience with this, how you phase in that integration over time to be in sync with that new demand. Has he any experience with that at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great point. When I did work like this at the University of Southern California, we usually wanted to have a 3-year plan when we were trying to do something that would be a whole-scale, multi-faculty transformation of, say, multiple courses in one department. I think if you think in a less than 3-year time horizon, you're going to just run into hiccups and problems. And I believe that my experience has been to start small and to scale up and to each year have a, you know, continue to push and add a new element. And it can work by backwards engineering. One of the things I like is where do you want to be in 3 years and start to break that down at the faculty level of, well, what can we start to do now to prep our students? Because there's going to be faculty prep and student prep to get to your goal. So one of the things that I do, like right now I'm at Ball State, if we do something as ambitious as what you were talking about, we would backwards engineer it and plot it on, you know, a giant whiteboard to figure out a timeline and then, you know, implement it in discrete steps over time. I see another hand up. I think that's Diane.
Yeah. UNCG.
Just a point, the Small Business Institute has a competition for real-world projects done by students that they've had for a number of years, and they have first, second, and third in 3 different categories at the undergrad and graduate level. And that website is smallbusinessinstitute.biz, B-I-Z, and they take the projects usually, I want to say September, May, June, July, September in there, and then there's a judging from the faculty that is external, so they're not competing with them, and then prizes are awarded, and I think it's really good for universities because the dean loves the things, but it also gives a lot of student recognition. And it has to be a real company, and it has to be a student project, so at the grad and undergrad. I just wanted to throw that in.
Oh, well, thank you,
Diane. Thank you.
Okay, so let's jump to the next one. The next one we can go through very quickly because they're the biggest challenges, and I think all of us, if I just asked you to write on the back of a napkin, would nail the first two as the top ones. Everyone mentioned time as the biggest issue. And time can be thought of and judged in so many different ways. The time that it takes to make these changes in your syllabus, the time it takes to meet student demand for these new innovations. And it also leads into the issue of balance, and balance in a bunch of different ways. You know, the balance between your discipline and entrepreneurship, the balance between, you know, your students having, you know, the right amount of information and not too much information overload, and also the balance between what you're trying to do with the Coleman Foundation and your departmental goals or your university goals. So balance is absolutely critical, and there's no magic bullet here. What I have tended to find is you just have to be aware that these courses can't operate outside the grid. They operate within existing guidelines, and the more that departments are and faculty are versed in it, the better they can work at balancing. A lot of individuals talked about professional development, that they wanted more information about tips on how to be a better professor of teaching entrepreneurship in their discipline. And again, there's no magic solution there either. That's always going to be a challenge. I do think what the Coleman Foundation is doing is a brilliant first step and a necessary first step, but professional development I still think has to still happen probably first locally. And I hope all of you are meeting as Coleman Fellows on your own campuses and operating as communities of practice and sharing what works, especially for your local circumstances. And then the fourth one that I just wanted to mention briefly is just the idea of maintaining academic rigor. The part that I think is fascinating for many of us as we move, if this is a shift for some of you towards more project-based learning, is the challenge of grade inflation. A lot of you feel that when you ask students to be entrepreneurial and you watch them working their butts off, it's hard to give them a C. You know, it's like, I saw how hard this kid worked. The project kind of wasn't good, but it's like, I'm stuck. And it's hard to maintain that rigor unless I think at the outset, going back to a point I made about 20 minutes ago, you really clearly define expectations and maybe even have a very solid rubric, because there is such a thing as a C entrepreneurial project and a failing entrepreneurial project. And in higher education, we're not supposed to be giving A's for effort. But I understand the temptation, because it is. In these types of courses where you work so closely with these students, and so many times you are allowing a student to get into one of their pet projects, when you give them a poor grade, it's different than them failing something that they're not as invested in. So I'll stop there for thoughts and comments.
This is Jerry Katz in St. Louis. One of the things that we've kind of gotten our heads around over the years has been the idea of using a real-world anchored grading system. So an A basically means we'll sign on the dotted line, a B means dinner and a few questions, a C is coffee, free refills, lots of questions, a D is nothing to eat or drink because we're detecting flaws, and an F is kid, you're embarrassing yourself, wasting my time, get out of here. Doing it that way, because we use a lot of external graders, that grading scale is something that outsiders immediately understand and can use. And one of the things we've told our students, we actually have alumni of our class come in and talk about their business plans and pitches, and the fact that people who are extremely successful got a B or a C in the class, and they had worked their butts off, and here's what the real world told them. But it was the most meaningful grade they got, and the feedback helped them figure out how to actually do it and make it work. So that, you know, we have a lot of kids who are going around with B's and C's on this capstone class and treating it as a point of pride. And what I tell the students, because some of them who are planning to go to grad school and they're sitting there like, oh God, I got a C, I'm dead. I said, I will be glad to write a really long note of recommendation because I respect what you did. I can tell stories about the hurdles you overcame, the learning you did, and the fact that you are on path to a process that is going to be produce something really great. And so done that way, the vast majority of kids, there's still kids who get really pissed about it, but most of the kids, the vast majority of kids, wear it as a badge of pride and go forth with that.
No, I think that's an awesome point, and I love that you have a modified grade scale that works for the external guests. I mean, that's awesome. So to just wrap up my portion.
Yeah, hold on, one more comment or thought from WPI or Frank.
Hi, it's Gina, and I think it's really important to the student to understand very, very early what the value proposition of their project is. It helps them avoid getting into those deep personal interests that they have. They need to get out of the classroom, find out whether this is going to be received in the marketplace. And then the other important thing is that they fail early so that they can pivot. And that's all. I'll make it short.
Awesome. Yep, pivoting is important not only for us as faculty, but for them as students. Great point. So to just wrap up, I just need one more minute. So on the things that work, this is an obvious list. External guests, real world activities. You guys are already considering student career paths. The more that this enables them to go to graduate school or do their own startups. And then the only other final thought that I thought was just brilliant by one of your colleagues is also recognizing that you can generate the right environment by really rethinking your classroom as a startup space. I think part of what's always interesting when we do these innovations is it transforms everything. It transforms us as faculty, transforms the students as learners, and it transforms the space from a classroom to a startup incubator. And I think the more that you start to think of your classroom as a startup incubator and less as a classroom, the more good results you'll continue to see for all the fine work we've been sharing. So thanks everyone for a really lively virtual coffee hour today. It's been my pleasure to share a few thoughts with you.
Any more comments or thoughts for Richard? We have a couple more minutes. Okay.
We're still muted.
All right. So Richard, when as we wrap up, I'll post this PowerPoint to the fellow site, and if you have additional thoughts or sort of a preamble to the presentation, if you write something up, I'll be happy to include that on the fellow site. So thank you for taking your time, and thank you for all your efforts in this. So we have a few minutes left on the call. Are there any other announcements that directors would like to share with the community? Any announcements?
Got one.
Go ahead.
It's Jerry Katz at SLU again. Remember, we did send out the announcement about our elevator pitch competition. Those videos would need to be in today. It's a national competition. We've actually got we're over 100 videos submitted, $2,500 first prize, and a chance to actually do the pitch to a group of millionaires. Last year, the 24 judges had a combined wealth of about $1.25 billion. So could go far, but we need it by 5 o'clock today. Details
5 o'clock today, and the link. I'll forward the link again to the directors as a reminder after the coffee hour. So thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Any other announcements? Okay, so I wanted to remind everyone on the call that the next coffee hour is on December 18th, and this is for directors only. And we will discuss the mid-year reporting format and what we expect from the campuses. And I encourage, again, all of you to take a few minutes to post your reports and syllabi, and thank you for all of the postings that fellows have already done. It's wonderful to see all the, and trust me, folks, I read everything, and I enjoy reading everything, and I would look forward to reading more of your updates and reports and your before syllabi and what your plans are. And it's really wonderful to see all of that posted again. So if there are any other questions for Richard, please forward them to me, email them to me, and I will definitely get in touch with him. And he, I think, will be happy to communicate some answers. Is that okay with you, Richard?
No, it absolutely is. I'm a big fan of all the work everyone's doing, and am very impressed that, 19 campuses sharing, a vision to embrace this important strand of educational innovation around entrepreneurship is something that I wholeheartedly support, and whatever I can do to help, I'm happy to do so.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, if there are no other comments or questions or thoughts, closing thoughts, we'll end the coffee hour today. Have a wonderful, safe holiday, and we'll talk to the directors and see all of the directors on the 18th.